And I think I love this movie as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It just like, and I love it. Now, not to quote John Legend over here, but for its perfect imperfections, like I don't mind that it's painter's clothing and a gas mask. I don't mind that they shot it at Grandma TT's house. It's just like it makes it
TT's house.
I think it's great that they did that.
Yeah. And I feel that like there's two people that probably love this movie: George Romero fanatics and people who appreciate just indie filmmaking at its finest, and I'm both of those. So yeah, the movie did draw me in for that, even though, as I mentioned earlier, it is slow.
It's a very slow one.
Oh goody goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Kyneton, joined by my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Guten Tag, mein friend.
Guten Tag, mein friend. I'm not very good at the German.
Yeah,
I did it in high school, but
I was nicht sehr gut. No.
Shut up. I did Spanish in high school. I did 4 years of that. So
see.
Yeah. Well, we're on episode 280, and this week, after last week talking about very bad things, which might be one of the most like if people want to know if we were really assholes, like cynical assholes in real life, I think that episode probably did it, because I think we laughed at so many horrible things that were happening in that movie. And we wanted to follow it up with, again, another movie about horrible things, but just with fictional things. And that's, of course, The Crazies. And we have a special guest this week, John, don't we?
Indubitably do. Blah, 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 blah. Keep that in. Indubitably. Yeah.
Who's our special guest?
We got Mark Kosobucki here, but I think he could do a hell of a lot of a better job. Man, I'm on fire today. Telling you about himself.
It's 10:51 at night. That's why we're recording. Yeah. It's like blah blah blah. Words hard.
Yeah. Well, then I could. So, Mark, take it away.
How's it going? Yeah, I'm Mark Kosobucki, sometimes known as Monster Mark, and I am the art director for the EERIE Horror Film Festival, and we are showing The Crazies this year. So it only is fitting that I would come on and have a discussion with you.
Awesome. And you've been on the show before. We had you on a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Couple years.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, I thought we were reviewing Codename Trixie.
No. I guess that's what the name of the movie was. That what it was supposed to be called? Codename Trixie.
It's an alternate title.
Of course it was.
Wait, I thought we were reviewing The Mad People.
You've got
that's what
Wikipedia
it comes up on Tubi.
Yeah.
If you watch it on Tubi, it comes up Codename Trixie.
Codename Trixie. Yeah. So The Crazies is a movie that, John, I know we talked about this when we did our Romero retrospective. We kind of glanced over it because the man's got a lot of movies in his back catalog. But The Crazies for me is an interesting one because, one, the movie takes place in a town that I kind of grew up in. I grew up in Cranberry, which is right outside of Evans City, and the high school that this movie takes place in was my high school.
That's crazy. Far out.
That's awesome.
Like the chemistry lab that Beardy McBeardy doctor is in, who honestly, he gets like, of course, one, I got to talk just for a moment about how Romero really does like to bake in the most downer of endings. But this guy, kind of an asshole throughout, saying he's a top man in the Trixie Project. That chemistry lab was the chemistry lab that I had chemistry class in. And let me tell you something. Seneca Valley Intermediate High School did not change at all between 1973 and 2000.
Hey, tell you that it ain't broken, don't fix it, Brian.
It literally looked the same. So, but that was interesting little tidbit for me is that a lot of that place is a place that I'm very familiar with. having lived in Cranberry and just kind of, you know, having a lot of friends who lived in the Zia-Leonople and Evans City area. So they really did shoot that thing there.
That's
Kind of the fun thing about living in Western Pennsylvania is that like you can almost always find somebody who either knows a place that they filmed a Romero movie or knows somebody who is in a Romero movie.
Yep.
It's kind of cool.
It's very bizarre because it's almost like that, you know, what's that game with Kevin Bacon where you're like everyone's twice
6
removed.
degrees of Kevin
Yeah,
Bacon.
6 degrees of Kevin.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but it's a Romero thing. Like just about everybody that you run into, especially if you ask them like, oh, have you lived in Pittsburgh your whole life? Oh yeah, I have. They will tell you like, oh yeah, you know, I was in, you know, Dawn of the Dead, I was in Night of the Living Dead, or I was in just weird movies. Like I've met people who are like, I was in Innocent Blood. I'm like, really? That one? Okay.
Yeah. It's funny to me, people who visit like Pittsburgh areas, like, oh my God, I saw the chief from Night of the Living Dead. I'm like, if you live in this city, you run into him every 5 minutes. You know?
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, rest in peace. He's passed away.
He's
since,
not alive now. You don't run into him anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so John, Mark, when was the first time you saw the Crazies?
First time I saw the Crazies was when they brought it out on DVD in the early 2000s. It was like a reissue, and I picked it up because it had Romero's name on it. And then a few years later, when I was working with the Horror Fest, we had Romero scheduled and we played it. And then Romero was fallen ill at the time, and it was like, I think he had either just started filming Diary of the Dead or he had either just finished it. And that would have been the second time I've seen it. So like it's been a long time. I revisited it last night, and it hits different after 2020.
A lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say so.
But I enjoyed it for what it was. You know, it's a great. I really love the atmosphere in his early stuff because it's just that 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Paint on everything. Everybody feels like they're in their grandma's house.
Because they are.
Which they probably are, yeah.
Because it's just like Romero's like, hey, does somebody have a grandma who could like let us use their house for like an afternoon? And
or does someone's grandma want to stab some guy in a gas mask and overalls with knitting needles?
Well, my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, all the people like in well, not all of them, but most of them are just high school kids. Yeah. They're like, hey, we'll give you like $5 and a little bit of weed if you put this mask on. They're like, oh, far out, man. You know. So, but I think the first time I either because I saw it night, dawn, and day, and I was like, I love this man more than life itself. So I think I just went to my video rental store and just tried to find every Romero thing I could. Like, you know, I saw this around the same time I saw Martin, you know, and you know, other things of that ilk. So, yeah, it was, boy, I was but a wee lad, maybe 12, 13 when I first saw this movie.
I was much older, and it was mostly because, you know, as I said, you know, everybody knew that I was into horror movies like in high school, right? So like, because I was the goth kid. And sure enough, like, you know, when you talk about, oh, Night of the Living Dead, you'll get someone who says, oh, yeah, you know, you ever heard of the Crazies? I'm like, no, I never fucking heard of that movie. And, you know, it was teachers in the school who had lived in Evans City who were the ones who told me about the movie. And so I had tried to find it, you know, and this was probably like, probably around 2002, 2003. And I think it's hard for people to understand that movies back then were harder to find.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like nowadays it's, and this is maybe old man again, yelling at the sky and yelling, get off my lawn. But like the streaming wasn't around back then. So like if you were told about a rare movie, really the only way you were going to find it was either one, it would show up on, you know, either cable or broadcast television, or you would find it in the video rental store, or even at like horror conventions where some guy, and I say guy because that's always how it is, recorded it off of, you know, a VHS copy and then gave you a video disc. I'm not saying DVD, I'm saying a video disc because those were real things. Yeah. And that's how you saw it. So I didn't really get a chance to see it until, much later when it had finally been put on DVD. And this
Brian,
was,
you didn't have a mom and pop video store, right? That you
we
only
had
had
Hollywood Video. That was
an
it.
Eagle Video, right?
We had Eagle Video, and then Hollywood Video kind of took over because Eagle Video just kind of went, went the way of the dodo.
Yeah, I think that's why I was able to see it, because I had 2 mom and pop shops in town.
Yeah, that was the thing is Cranberry. When I moved to Pennsylvania in '94, that Cranberry was still kind of farmish land, like it's still kind of, but it also was very much like yuppie suburb city, which for people who are in the Pittsburgh area, exactly what I'm talking about. But we really didn't have, like, Eagle Video was it, and then you had Hollywood Video open up, and then, you got more variety at Hollywood Video, but, I didn't find it until, Amazon. And that was me just purchasing a copy because I was just like you, John, going kind of on a George Romero kick. I bought that massive Dawn of the Dead collection. You know the one I'm talking about, the big book. And I was like, I got to find the rest of these movies. And, Season of the Witch wasn't out on print yet. And the Crazies was. So that's when I bought it. And watching it again, post-pandemic, if we are going to call it post-pandemic, just the not crazy highs of it, this movie does ring a hell of a lot different. And it's one of those things that, Romero couldn't have thought that anything like this could happen in reality. But I think for him, he's really more or less just kind of, because the 70s, 1973, he's like poking fun at government at large.
Yeah, well, this was also, kind of hard to come by because this is before Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, if you want to even say he had, like, that made him a made man, because they still didn't ever give him much money or much, ability to make movies. It was, he got that 3-picture deal after Dawn of the Dead, where first he made Night Riders, and then he made, the anthology film. Why am I drawing a blank here? Creepshow. And then but in the contract it was like, oh, you need to make another zombie movie, and so he made Day of the Dead. But it's it's hard to come by, and kind of almost fun looking at this vault of post Night of the Living Dead and pre Dawn of the Dead movies, and just seeing that, like, he's a great filmmaker, because as we said, like, he's in someone's grandma's house. They got about $30 to make this movie. They, George Romero's doing the voiceovers for every fucking thing. So the fact that this movie is not an unmitigated disaster just speaks to George's not only ability to film a movie, but also, let's face it, the guy's a maestro in post-production.
Oh man, I'm glad you said it, because he really is. The moments when you've got the government assholes who are, honestly, you could tell that George, like, was a massive hippie in the 60s, because he clearly was just like, fuck, fuck these guys. You got the general guy eating an orange saying, well, who gives a fuck about Evans City? In his dad's general outfit, because it clearly doesn't fit him. But, like, these guys, whenever we're showing them and they're talking about bombing Evans City, he has this way about him where he cuts back and forth with documentary stock footage of bombers being loaded up and the military. And it's very of that time, but you can tell that he's doing this in a stylistic way that just kind of hits you over the head, like, hey, this is totally fake, but not really.
Yeah, it's amazing he doesn't end up like Ed Wood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Boy, I could do a whole lot with all this stock footage. I could make a whole movie. But can we just call a spade a spade? This is Night of the Living Dead 1.5, right? I mean, they're just zombies.
It kind of flips it.
It does flip it.
Yeah, it's like I found myself, like, in Night of the Living Dead, you would be cheering for the army, because without them coming in and just cleaning house, we'd be screwed. And then this, you're cheering for humanity against the army. Like, it's totally it's flipped on its head a little bit, with still the downer ending. But, like, I was sitting there, it's like watching it last night. I was like, wow, I'm completely depressed watching.
It's a very depressing movie. You get no joy out of watching this movie, like that, and one, you have to consider this, okay? This movie came out in 1973. What was going on in maybe the year or 2 years before this movie came out?
Well, 73 is when Nixon pulled out the American soldiers of Vietnam. Yes. But yeah, it was, and it's because like 71 to 72, it like we didn't already know, it's like, yeah, this war is not winnable.
Yeah. So already there's a taste in Romero's mouth that honestly started in, 68. That taste in his mouth that, the powers that be that are our government, that are military, will lie to your fucking face to save their own asses. And that nuking a town because of an accident is acceptable. Like that's the thing. And then, yeah, on top of that, as you said, Mark, the soldiers, the guys in, white painter outfits and gas masks, what are they doing?
Hey.
They're just
Brian,
shooting.
They had $50.
I never said they were bad painter outfits or cheap painter outfits. I just said they're painter outfits. Okay, so they're in white painter outfits and gas masks. And what are they doing to all of the people in Evans City? Like, first they start off as just like, oh yeah, we're just trying to keep the peace. And as they're doing that, what are they doing? They're stealing shit. Mm-hmm. And then they're just outright shooting motherfuckers and then just stealing their crap as they're dead. Like, there's a scene where they've killed a bunch of people, lit people on fire because they're now doing burn pits, and they're rifling through people's like wallet, looking for money and jewelry and all sorts of shit. And I'm just like, fucking hell, man!
Really did a good job of making you hate the military.
Oh yeah,
and hating authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Not subtle.
No, not
the man. No, I mean the man was never really subtle.
No,
I mean, look at Dawn of the Dead. If you're an educated person past, like, say, the 8th grade, you can go, oh, this is a commentary on consumerism. But literally in the movie, they're all standing outside JCPenney. No, they're coming for the place. They don't know why, but they want to be in here. It's like probably the great sale on Birkenstocks. Absolutely.
That's 100% what it is. Yeah. In life, they lived here all the time. Now they want to be here in death. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thanks. I didn't catch that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I never claimed that Romero was subtle, ever.
I don't think he wanted to.
He also had the soldiers just hiding out in the house, eating the food, and like let them do all the dirty work while we just hang here until like your main characters get in to like kill them. Was also kind of like, oh yeah, these guys are kind of just ducking out of it because all their like coworkers are murdering people.
Yeah. So do we want to talk a bit about the plot of this very downer of a movie, right? John, do you want to kind of regale us in the plot of this film?
Ooh, so like, wow, where do I even begin?
Where do you begin?
Because it is a sequence of events. Like this does feel almost, it's not, but like almost a mockumentary.
It does.
It's shot on 16 millimeter. It's shot almost purposely to feel like that effect. But yeah, it's like this virus has escaped. We go between different kinds of characters. We have our heroes trying to basically Scooby-Doo this shit. We got the scientist guy who is they must be shot on sight guy from Dawn of the Dead trying to figure out a cure. Yeah.
He is they must be shot on sight. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we have him trying to find a cure. We got the military guys. We got other military guys. And it's just kind of like almost a post-apocalyptic slice of life, and just going through all these cavalcade of events. And we watch some of our heroes eventually get the disease because it is airborne, right? That's
yes.
Yeah. Gee, yeah. I can't imagine anything else like
that.
Well,
our heroes, I got to be honest with you. This isn't a criticism of Romero, but the dialogue that the characters have, is it just me or is it like really not that great?
No, I mean it's not. I would,
okay.
Look,
I'm saying this as a Romero fan, by the way. Before I get the shit tons of hate saying "fuck you, motherfucker," the Crazies is awesome. Okay, listen, cool your jets. I'm just saying that if you watch Night of the Living Dead or you watch Dawn of the Dead and you compare the performances and dialogues in those two movies to the performances and dialogue in this movie, you will notice a big, massive fucking difference.
Well, Romero's very, like, he comes from industrial video. He's very tactful. It's like, you know, the dialogue serves the purpose of getting the shots, and we're going to get as many as from many different angles as we can with no storyboards. We'll piece it together in post-production, as we did any of our industrial videos that we made for, you know, Turner's Iced Tea or whomever in Pittsburgh. You know, so it all serves a purpose. And look, the guy's no Diablo Cody or Quentin Tarantino. Okay?
I get that.
He's not going to razzle dazzle with the dialogue.
I get that.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think?
I can remember, like, as I was watching it last night, kind of trailing off as they were delivering like their lines and stuff. It wasn't like extremely like I wasn't like hooked on it. I found myself kind of more or less doing the the Where's Waldo of Will, if you will, of like, who's in this movie that I recognize from his other stuff? I was like, I see Bill Heinzman shooting at the hospital, and like, you know, oh, that's cool. And just kind of like, oh, I remember that guy from this part. And, you know, which was, I mean, it is what it is, you know, like it didn't extremely draw me in. The points that were delivered that needed to be delivered were, you know, I got them and I was like, okay, I know what's going on. Like it didn't really need a ton of dialogue. You were being chased by the government. We need to get away. We need to get out of Evans City somehow. We can't.
Well, I guess for me, like, maybe it's because of the fact that, and I'll be honest with you, the whole thing is like, you have actors in these parts that are given some serious fucking situations. And I just feel like sometimes they're not really delivering. Right. Like, and the couple characters thought, like, one, Will McMillan as David, he was okay. Oh yeah, he wasn't bad. He clearly knew what he was doing. But then you've got like Harold Wayne Jones as Clank, his drunk buddy.
Oh, and I love that. Only in a 70s movie, like, you couldn't do this today, where he's like, "What, are you getting drunk?" He's like, he has a bottle of whiskey. He's like, "Nah, just to stay warm." I'm like, that is so like working class 70s guy.
I get that, but like, you can clearly tell that man's not an actor.
Yeah.
He's not, because like, and it's a shame because he's given a part where he clearly is fighting what he calls the bug, and it's fighting it internally in his mind. And I'm just feeling like if you had a better actor with better dialogue, then maybe those scenes where you see that would be way more impactful. Instead, it kind of get him like explaining what's going on, and that's kind of like the worst thing you can do.
I kind of felt like he was very reminiscent of like David Hess. I was like,
yeah,
this could have been David Hess, and it might have bumped it up a little bit, because you know,
Brian, I'm sorry, Mark.
No, that was my thought.
Okay. But Brian, just to play devil's advocate, and like, I mean, Night of the Living Dead is if it's not in my top 10 films of all time, it's damn close. Like, but were you really blown away by anybody's acting performance in that movie other than Dwayne Jones?
Oh yeah. That's I mean, I'm not gonna say Barbara. Not to say that I didn't, but like, you know, it's something that they built off of in the Tom Savini version, right? But I did find, who the hell's the actor? I should know this.
Who's he play?
Who's he play? Oh, fuck.
Oh, okay, that guy. Oh, I love fuck in that movie.
No. You know who I'm talking about.
Harry?
Yes. I liked him.
Harry's pretty over the top.
But he's supposed to be. Carl Hardman. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be over the top. And let's be honest here. That movie is a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're going to do a movie with a pressure cooker in that situation, okay, the only way that it sells it and how it works is the interactions of the people within the pressure cooker. Right. Now, that's not to say that everyone in that movie is great, right? Like Keith Wayne, Tom, and Judy, they kind of suck.
She sucks, Judy. If we don't get to that gas pump, we're just going to be all Jimmy Willikers and foolhardy, I reckon.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say that everyone is great, but I'm just saying, the main ones that we're looking at, Dwayne Jones, Carl Hardman, they're the ones that are really like pushing the drama in this. You can tell that they are taking what material they're given, and they are pushing it to an 11, which is why that movie works so well. Okay. But in this movie, I'm just saying, like, there weren't really any actors that I'm going like, holy fuck, aside from maybe Richard Liberty. He might be the only one.
Yeah. I mean, wait, who was Richard?
That's Lynn Lowry's father in that
yes.
movie, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's from Day of the Dead, the scientist.
He's the scientist from Day of the Dead. In this one, he's kind of the creepy daddy.
Oh, yeah.
I do
creepy.
like the main scientist, they shall be shot on sight guy. He was good.
He has a presence.
He has a presence. He's got a couple one-liners, but like, that's it. And what happens to him sucks ass. And that's how you know this is a Romero movie, because it's all dour and horrible.
Well, he's the hope. Yeah. He's like, this is all resting on him, and then he, essentially dies, and you're like, oh, well.
You're like,
okay,
oh, fuck.
That's it then.
Well, as we learned from 2020, even if he had gotten the vaccine out, half the country would be like, I'm not taking that.
Oh, my God.
I'll just be a crazy.
Can you imagine if you took this movie and you wrapped it in that pandemic bullshit?
The remake came out too early.
It did.
Oh, yeah.
It totally did, because if you made this nowadays, you would have some people going like, it's my fucking right to not go to the high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they were doing that. They were that one dude. They started shooting at him almost instantly when they came to like round him up for quarantine. And it's like, that probably would have actually happened, like
up in Evans City. Yeah.
In a lot of places. Yeah, for sure.
Well, just to go back a little bit here to what, Mark, you had said, like, this is a very slow movie.
Yeah.
And, I know some people are going to be like, maybe older listeners like, oh, you're just young, John. First off, I'm not really that young. But, but I don't really think that that's necessarily accurate, because Night of the Living Dead is a slow burn.
It is.
And I don't mind it. It's like, oh no, here comes some of the zombies. Let's light a couch on fire in real time, to keep them from coming in. I have no problem.
In real time.
Yeah. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But like, but this movie, I think it really played a lot into Dawn of the Dead, because if you look at Night and Dawn, like Night is like very slow, very plotting, very, very 60s. Like, and Dawn of the Dead is basically an over the top cartoon, quick cuts, like crazy angles, gore out the wazoo. But this movie is, I think that I'm wondering if Romero saw the cut and went, when he went to make Dawn of the Dead, he's like, oh, we need to speed shit up, because, the Crazies is so slow. I was sitting there sometimes during a lot of dialogue scenes being like, can I just see some Crazies get shot, please?
Yeah. For sure. And there's not a lot of like levity in it either. Like, something Dawn has is strategically placed humor. There's fun things in that movie that make it enjoyable, but there was no humor at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, even just in the abstract, being in a mall, like that's goofy. It's fun, especially since malls were kind of like in 1978, like, whoa, a mall? I've heard of those. Only rich people can go to those. But in this one, it's just kind of like, like you said, grandma's house, the local high school.
I suppose the only thing that really made me laugh was the old woman knitting when stabbing the guy. And I was like, that's probably, in my opinion, one of the best parts of the movie, because it's so dark and it has an element of horror to it that's pretty creepy. And then like, it's humorous at the same time, because like, as he's crawling away, the yarn's with him. Like the ball of yarn is going with him. I was like, that's funny. And he's kind of just whimpering like, they stabbed me, like
I would say one of the darkest moments of this movie, it is actually the beginning. Like, I forgot how dark that fucking beginning is, where you've got two little kids who are like fucking around in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah.
And their dad starts going insane. like trashing the whole place. Little girl goes to mom's bedroom. Mom's dead. And then the dad just lights the whole fucking house on fire.
Yeah.
Roll
Well,
credits.
we've all been there, mate.
And
We
then-
have, John?
It's kind of scary too, because like they didn't do anything to the father. Like he didn't have any kind of elaborate makeup or,
No.
you know, like I was thinking about that today, because I was thinking about the remake in comparison and how like the Crazies in the remake had more makeup to them. Like you could kind of point them out a little
Yeah.
easier. Whereas in this, you know, like they did nothing to them. They're just people who kind of start to act silly and then they try and kill you. And it's like,
Yeah.
it was a good thing, I thought too, that they didn't try to make them rabid, because like, well, it's just rabies then, you know.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing, but like, you know,
And
I think we probably had our vaccine for rabies by 73, so
You'd
it
hope
wasn't
so.
even a thing.
well, the funny thing is that the way that the people who are infected are presented, it's one of the most intelligent ways to do it. You know, because as you said, like we could have very easily like thrown veins on them or just, you know, made their eyes look weird or some shit like that. But the whole point is that like we're watching the movie and we're trying to guess, like, is this person fucked up?
Mhm.
Are they going to go? And I think Romero cheats a little bit towards the back half of the movie because he starts throwing in like a goofy sound effect.
Yeah.
Like, did you get that? Like towards the end when Judy is, again, he's got a thing with naming his characters Judy. You know, main character Judy, who's a nurse who's also pregnant with David's baby, she starts acting goofy, and like Romero throws in that weird sound effect to clue us in that, hey, Judy's
it.
fucked up. She's got the bug. Whereas prior to that, you know, you would just have like Lynn Lowry's character who's normal for 5 minutes and then just starts like, she says like one or two things that just sound really weird.
She starts giggling or something.
She starts giggling or something weird like that. And that happens with the other characters too. Like you have the one character who's like running up towards David and Judy towards the end of the movie, who's clearly infected, but he's like, oh man, didn't know it was you. And this is after he's like shot at him and just like completely like the empathy's turned off.
Yeah.
That's real smart.
It's interesting too, because like in the situation, like a martial law situation where everyone in your family's being rounded up, people would probably start to go crazy anyway without being infected, you know? So like there's kind of that also, are you crazy because this is really weighing on you, or are you crazy because you're sick? You know, thought that was kind of that's kind of something I picked up on that, you know, I'm not sure if Romero had intended that, but
he probably did. He was a smart man.
Well, Brian, just to go back a little bit, when you talked about the opening scene where the dad starts the fire, like I love watching like independent, low budget movies from back in the day. Because like now, if you get distributed, they say it's a low budget indie movie. It was made for like $10 million. But this movie, I found out with the house burning at the beginning for the opening credits, like somehow they must have had like a radio that had like the fire, you know, stations on it, and they heard about a house burning down, and they went and they said like to one of the firemen, hey, can we shoot this? And they went, yeah, okay, just stay out of the way. I'm like, okay, we'll go up on that hill and we'll just shoot the house burning down. And that's how they got the opening shot for that. It's just completely guerrilla filmmaking.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I don't think you'd see people do that anymore. Like, can you imagine, like, John, if you and I were like, hey, we're making a movie. Oh, what's that? We heard on the radio that, you know, there's a car on fire on a highway. Let's go down to the highway and ask the police if we could shoot it. I don't think they would allow us to. I think they'd say, no, don't do that.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I mean, now it would just be, they would just try to do computer effect. Like my only other thought would be like if someone built a model and set that on fire would be your only other.
Yeah, miniature style.
Miniature stuff. But like for the most part, it would just be CG stuff.
Yeah, no, it's truly amazing. And honestly, I can't say too much about the remake to the Crazies because I think I saw it like one time when it came out, and that was it.
I hate to admit this, but I not only do I like the remake, I kind of prefer it, and I feel like I'm a bad person for saying that because of my love for George. But I for just shits and gigs, after I rewatched it for this episode, I rewatched the remake too, and I'm like, this one's pretty good.
It's not terrible.
Yeah.
In the realm of remakes, it's not one of the worst ones I've ever seen.
I mean, as I said, I haven't seen it in years, so I can't say whether or not like it's good. But I imagine that it's a much tighter story than the original, and that's probably
they also had more than $1,200.
They did have more than $1,200.
Yeah.
You know, but for fuck's sake, why do they have to set it in Iowa and not Pennsylvania? Like that's kind of the thing.
Who knows?
Well, because it wasn't George. I
Bullshit.
mean, I think George loved being from Pittsburgh and loved Pittsburgh, but I mean, I think he based his movies in Pittsburgh because that's where he was making them. And he this way I don't have to cover up like the Clark Bar sign or the Heinz sign or any of the streets that are clearly from Pittsburgh. So
Pittsburgh has a whole vibe.
It does have a vibe.
I mean, like you can tell a Romero movie just by the settings, and like Pittsburgh has a feel to it that I can't explain. That it's creepy to a point, and maybe that's just because it's all where Romero filmed. He like put that vibe into it by making a bunch of his stuff there.
I think it's authenticity is I think what it is.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of Pittsburgh too has become, gentrified and modernized, but back then it was, very, very rustic, blue collar kind of town. I mean, the Deer Hunter was kind of shot around there in Weirton, I believe. Where was My Bloody Valentine shot? Do we know? Was that West Virginia? Because even though it wasn't Pittsburgh,
I think
movie,
it was the remake to it was shot around here.
But the original
I think was. Well, no, My Bloody Valentine. That was a Canadian film.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah,
but that whole kind of like working class, overcast kind of town, and My Bloody Valentine. I remember seeing that movie. I'm like, God, it almost feels like George Romero could have directed this. The same kind of small town grittiness that Pittsburgh has.
Yeah, I really go back to. I think it's just one. I think Romero has, because it comes from that industrial film vibe. He kind of makes things almost doc style,
wide shot, mid shot, close ups. We're out.
Yeah.
Get your pickup shots. Let's go.
And then on top of that, it has a gritty, authentic vibe to them. None of the people in any of the Romero movies really are movie stars, and they don't have the movie star look. They aren't from that pedigree. Like I don't see any people in those movies and go like, oh yes, that's an LA person.
What do you mean from like the early days? Because as soon as you said that, I thought about Dennis Hopper in Land of the Dead.
Well, okay, I'm not talking about his later films.
The early years.
I'm talking about the early years. I'm talking about pretty much up until like, I don't know. I haven't seen Monkey Shines in a long time.
Oh,
John.
Monkey Shines.
But I mean, I'm going up to probably a Day of the Dead. Yeah. That's probably when I would say that the dividing line is. Yeah. But everyone in those movies, they look like real people.
Yeah.
They look like your neighbor because they probably were your neighbor. But that's what I think it is. And like everything about this particular movie, and maybe this is why like I'll say like this wasn't my favorite Romero film, is just that this one rings more authentic than other ones.
Oh, absolutely.
I can buy that.
Yeah. And I think I love this movie as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It just like, and I love it now, not to quote John Legend over here, but for its perfect imperfections, like I don't mind that it's painter's clothing and a gas mask. I don't mind that they shot it at Grandma TT's house. It's just like it makes it
TT's house.
I think it's great that they did that.
Yeah. And I feel that like there's two people that probably love this movie: George Romero fanatics and people who appreciate just indie filmmaking at its finest. And I'm both of those. So yeah, the movie did draw me in for that, even though, as I mentioned earlier, it is slow.
It's a very slow one. It's a very slow film. Very slow. But I guess my thoughts on this is what did you think of probably what I would say one of the most disturbing aspects of this movie? And that's the relationship between Richard Liberty and Lynn Lowry. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Father-daughter, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, they needed what I like to call the Ray Liotta Hannibal scene, even though that movie came out many years later. You got to do something that's going to be the shower scene from Psycho for your movie. So Romero's like, what if a dad tried to fuck his kid? George? Well, no, it'll be shocking. And then he's lit another cigarette, you know.
It's definitely the moment where he's in the kitchen and he kind of starts to like nod her face a little after saying, you know, like, I'm not going to let my daughter get into that kind of trouble. And he starts like getting uncomfortably close with her. And it's like up until that point, you know, you're cheering for humanity to survive this. You know, This is a horrible thing. And then once he starts doing that to his daughter, you're like, yeah, maybe just take the ship down. I don't care. let it go. I mean, just like, ugh.
Yeah. What I love about, and again, this isn't saying love as in, hey, I like that. It's just more or less in the realm of this film. I think Richard Liberty has the best lines in the whole movie because that kitchen scene you're talking about, Mark, like, he starts off saying like, you know, I won't let my daughter date. And he says it in a very calm, kind of controlled way, you know, and then he starts digging into like, well, it's because the boys want to do sick shit. You know, they want to do horrible, sick shit. And, you know, if you've never seen Richard Liberty in Day of the Dead, like you can see where that character is like in this crazy version of him. Because, yeah, he starts amping it up to an 11 and then kind of backs it off as, he's like trying to kiss/gnaw on Lynn Lowry's face.
Yeah, it's just creepy.
And then when we get to the scene, it's edited in a very bizarro, weird way, like almost like you're having a bad trip. Because like it's cutting back and forth between like a bell going off and them making out. And you're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This is horrible. And then immediately it's gone.
Yeah. He's the one dude's grabbing him already.
Clank.
To like get him. Yeah. He's like, you know, getting him away.
Throws him down the stairs.
Much deservedly.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the like, how long before the old lady has a heart attack in her house? How long before the dogs eat her face? You know, that kind of like, you know, oh, the worst case scenario, you know, man's best friend has no choice but to eat your face. Like, you know, what is the worst possible thing that could happen from becoming a crazy is that you have no control over yourself and you try to bang your kid.
Yeah.
It's really
you have to wonder too, like if like, because Lynn's character wasn't really talking through the majority of the movie, and whenever she did, it was never really like, it wasn't very coherent if I remember.
Well, this is a Romero movie. They didn't have time for women to talk.
So it's like, you know, you have to wonder, like, was she really sick or did her father do that to her? Like,
no, she was really sick.
Okay.
Cause like her face is a face of enjoyment.
Yeah,
that's
true.
going on.
Oh yeah,
right.
She's reciprocating, which means she's got the crazy.
She's got the crazy, and she had been saying things prior to this to Clank that were like, okay.
There is that whole part where like he had to like keep her from running up to like the army. Yeah, you're right.
Well, that part came afterwards. That was after that because she starts like running with the sheep.
Yeah,
for reasons, and but, just running with the sheep. But you know, like prior to the whole thing with her dad, you know, like they're in the kitchen and she's talking to Clank, and that's when she starts like doing the weird giggle crap.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like this wasn't when they were adding in the sound effects, so you could like take it as, oh well, maybe she isn't crazy, or maybe she is. We don't know. But I kind kind of find it unusual that Romero puts Lynn Lowry in a movie. She's not from Pittsburgh at all. She had been famous for other movies prior to this. Like she was in I Drink Your Blood. Like that was her first film. And then a bunch of other very bizarro, weird movies like Sugar Cookies, which I think is kind of softcore porn. And Battle of Love's Return, which Lloyd Kaufman movie. Go figure. And then she does the Crazies, and then after that does a movie called Score, which I'm pretty sure is, again, softcore porn.
Well, Brian, they had probably held a casting call and she came in and they went, well, she's been in other movies. Let's put her in,
Right. I'm just saying it's like, if there's one person I'd say like, oh yeah, that's the one person who isn't, like, I don't see them go like, oh, that's a Pittsburgh person. It is Lynn Lowry, she doesn't.
He didn't just cast people that came in eating pierogies and drinking Iron Cities. And Ian Skulls, the Steelers going to go the wagon this year. You're in.
I mean, I kind of thought that was the requirements to be in a Romero movie.
Do you own a gun? Perfect, you're in.
Do you own a gun or know where you can get one? Yeah, I sure do.
Are you related to a Striner? You're in. Yeah.
Are you related to a Striner or Heinzman? Yeah. Striner or Heinzman, you pick your poison. Yeah. So before we talk about, EERIE Horror Fest, because Mark, I definitely want to talk about that. What are your guys' final thoughts on the Crazies?
Do you want me to go first here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate this movie more than I would say I enjoy it. I love that Romero wanted to keep growing and becoming bigger and bigger, even though like his budgets probably weren't getting bigger and bigger. There's a reason that Night of the Living Dead takes place in a house for 90% of it, because they got a house and they could shoot in there. But I appreciate the desire to kind of like to grow as a filmmaker and to take chances. And like I said, I love this movie for all of its flaws. I don't know how often I will return to it the way like I probably watch Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or Creep Show at least once a year. And, but it's a fascinating exploration of the journey of George Romero as a filmmaker. And I think for anybody that wants to explore him as a filmmaker, I would go chronologically, because it's not like Steven Spielberg, who, after Jaws had the keys to the kingdom, and you don't have to watch his journey as a filmmaker because every budget he had was the most astronomical number you could imagine. But watching George Romero go from a little bit more money to a little bit more money and a little bit more opportunity, it's fascinating to watch his journey as a filmmaker. So I would watch everything in order. So again, just to repeat, I appreciate this movie more than I would say I enjoy it.
I'd say it's of course it's worth watching to learn the about Romero and get his history and kind of like understand how he worked as a filmmaker. I think it could have maybe benefited from some trimming of the fat. It's a little long for how it tells its story. Maybe like 10 minutes less maybe could have been a little bit beneficial. And then like it has good parts that could have used just like a tiny bit more, like the helicopter chase through the woods would have, maybe just something extra, something to where somebody gets hit by a bullet and now they're, struggling the whole time to like get through, and they're also shot. So stuff like that could have maybe kicked it up a little bit. Definitely uncomfortable at parts, definitely depressing. But I mean, entertaining to watch for what it is. And I'd come back to it again at some point if somebody in my circle hadn't seen it. I'm like, yeah, you should watch it once. I wouldn't say it's like the greatest thing ever, but it's fun.
Yeah, I would say that if you had seen Amusement Park, which was Romero's lost film, that I believe it was last year, was screened for the first time.
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Pandemic has caused it where, like, honestly, time has been compressed. So, but yeah, 2 years ago, one of Romero's lost films, The Amusement Park, screened on Shudder and at local film festivals. And if you saw that and you're like, this is kind of bizarro and weird, and where can I get more of that? The Crazies fits that bill. The two honestly share very similar editing and narrative styles. Okay. I would say this is not my favorite. It's something that I'd watch because I'm a Romero fan. And, because I also, it's my fucking high school in the movie. But there are some narrative problems with it. It is slow. The characters are kind of wooden at times. And truth be told, there's ways of taking this and kind of distilling it into something that maybe is a bit more exciting. Mark, I think you're right. 10 minutes could absolutely be chopped out of this thing. But it's interesting to kind of see Romero's growth as a filmmaker from these sort of steps. You watch this movie, maybe you watch Season of the Witch, which is also really fucking slow. And you can then see kind of progress to something like Dawn of the Dead. And then even tighter with something like Day of the Dead, which I'd say Day of the Dead is probably his best movie in terms of engagement from start to finish. Wouldn't you guys say that?
I go Dawn.
Oh, you guys
I
go
Dawn all day.
Oh, okay.
I would say
I'd say for engagement. I'm not talking about like overarching story, because there are moments in Dawn where it's fucking slow.
Well,
I would say
really?
for the Day of the Dead for the effects being cranked up to 11.
Yeah.
And Dawn for its really well done storytelling and its character development.
Choke on it.
Maybe it's also because whenever I watch Dawn, I'm watching the massive extended cut too.
Oh yeah, that'll change a little bit. But are you also not counting anthology films? Because I would also say
Creep Show. Yeah. Well, that's also Stephen King's involvement, though. I can't necessarily call that a pure.
Stephen
100%.
King was so coked up, he didn't probably even remember being in it.
I mean, he was in it. He was Jordy Vale, lunkhead. No, I like Day mainly because, in terms of, if I had never seen a Romero movie before, I never knew him, and I'm just watching, I want to watch a good zombie movie and be sucked in through the entire time. You can do that with Day of the Dead.
Day's the Jedi.
Oh, well,
I wouldn't say that.
Fuck you. I like Jedi. That's my favorite one. So there you go.
Day's the Dark Knight Rises.
I really
That's
think
unfair.
I really think it comes down to the effects in Day versus Dawn.
Okay.
I really think that's it, because there's so much more there. There's so much more gore in that movie that's fun to watching. And I mean, there's also really good character development in Day of the Dead too. I don't mean to throw shade at that or anything.
That's okay.
But Dawn is one of those ones that I think has a tiny bit better atmosphere.
Yeah.
Just for the mall, that mall is a time capsule. And just seeing it, I remember seeing malls that looked like this, and for me, that I always watch them in order. So I mean,
plus the music, that was something I didn't mention about the Crazies, but honestly, the music in the Crazies is not really anything to write home about. They kind of use, military tap sounds at points, and but then you watch Dawn of the Dead and you have that amazing music by Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good.
Yep. Absolutely.
Any music by Goblin's gonna kick ass.
Yeah. Speaking of Goblin.
Speaking of Goblin,
wouldn't it be cool if you could go see them live?
That would be amazing.
That would be
But how could that
fucking
possibly
insane?
happen?
I don't know. Maybe there's an event happening October 4th through the 7th.
What?
Yeah.
What's that, Mark?
It's called the EERIE Horror Fest. And it's going to be a good time. And Goblin's playing on the last night. So,
oh man,
I think they will be probably doing a few songs from Dawn of the Dead. When I looked at their tour that they were posting, and I believe that the tour that they're on is a Demons tour. They're doing strictly the score from Demons on most of their shows.
Also,
and then
awesome movie.
Horror Fest is going to be like a medley of different. Because I remember when we were talking about bringing Goblin in very, very early, like in the winter this year, it was the option to do like, here's the movies that they're going to do, or they can do a medley of all of them. And they picked a medley of a bunch of stuff. So I think they'll be playing stuff from like Suspiria and Dawn of the Dead maybe, and definitely some stuff from Demons. So
wow.
And I would just like to say for all of you who are coming into this or considering this, like I grew up basically right next door to Erie. And for all of you people who aren't from Pennsylvania, who assume it's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and that's it, Erie is a great town. It's we have our own news channel, we have our own amusement parks, we have our own theater district. Erie is a legitimate city, and I think a lot of people who visit Erie like end up falling in love with it as this kind of like tiny little town that could, or city that could rather. And once you see the Warner Theater, you're gonna love it.
Well, I was gonna say
it's a nice medium. Like it's enough city to where you're not swallowed up by it, and it's enough country to where like, you can get a little bit of everything here. So
I was going to say that Erie is the only place that I've seen where you have a shopping mall that's in the shape of a gun.
That's metal.
Yeah. There's an urban legend that the mob funded it, but I think it's an urban legend.
I don't think it's an urban legend. My brother, who went to Penn State Barron and worked in that mall, told me, he's like, yeah, it's a legit thing.
It's like pointed at Jamestown, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the shape of a gun.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like honestly, like when I went to EERIE Horror Fest last year, that was the first time, and went into the Warner Theater. It was absolutely the most beautiful theater that I have ever been in, period. Like, put a period, done. There, and then seeing one of my favorite horror films, Hellraiser, on the screen for the first time. I'd never seen that movie in theaters. It was an experience, and I am stoked to be going back. John and I are both gonna be going back there, doing our podcast shtick. And Mark, I'm curious to know what you guys have up your sleeves, because Goblin's one thing. What else is going to be happening at EERIE Horror Fest?
Well, we're playing the George Romero Foundation is going to be there through the entire event. So we are playing Night of the Living Dead on the 4th, and there's going to be a live score by a band called Morricone Youth accompanying it. That should be a good time. And then I believe we're playing the Crazies. I don't think it's the same night. It might be the 5th. As far as like guests, we have Jenna Davis from Megan. She was the voice of Megan, slated to come out. And
so cool.
Most recently, Tina Romero, George Romero's daughter, is going to DJ our opening night.
Awesome.
So, and she'll be there through the 5th. So that should be a good time. But like Goblin is your heavy hitter event.
Yeah.
For the weekend. We're still looking at guests, and I've got some emails out to people to see if there's any interest. So I can't talk necessarily about that stuff yet because I don't want to get anyone super excited. But yeah, like I know that there's been more submissions than we had last year.
Really?
So that's something to look forward to. We should be playing some good new stuff that you can look forward to seeing. I know that they'll be I'll probably end up doing a sculpting seminar. I haven't formally been asked yet. I'm sure they're just kind of like, yeah, if Mark wants to sculpt something, we'll set him up on Saturday and he can sculpt. And there'll be vendors and stuff around. So I know Karis is doing a good job curating a good number of vendors and things, so people have some cool stuff to buy. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. So
yeah, I mean, there's there's vendors, there's a bar there. There is movies being shown all the time. There are movies that people submitted on an independent level, but there's also classic films. There is a podcast of two dorky neckbeards upstairs that you're going to be able to listen to, and tons of celebrity guests. Like it only keeps getting bigger and better. And yeah, you want to be a part of this.
I'm pretty sure that our that John booked for Saturday morning, maybe one of the mornings we're playing the new 4K versions of Alligator and Piranha, I think.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
Nice.
It's not up on a schedule yet, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be announced soon. So hopefully I'm right.
Yeah.
I hope they don't make a liar out of me, because that's something I'm going to be excited for.
Well, Mark, speaking of the Crazies,
Yes.
I just like to say that Mark and I went to college together, and we both went through what is called the fine arts program. But yeah, where you don't just do film, you do like drawing
Everything.
and ceramic. Yeah, everything. And I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I was not a least bit envious of this man's artistic talents,
Oh,
because
thank
like
you.
I can draw a little bit, but my God, if you see this man's artwork, you're going to be
It is
blown
pretty
the fuck
amazing.
away.
It is really amazing.
And yeah, do you have a print of the Crazies for the event? Is that correct?
It'll be released tomorrow on our social media. I did a little reel today because I'm signing all of them. They're all screen printed. Because we're showing Night of the Living Dead and the Crazies, I thought it would be cool to do like two prints. And so we have a Night of the Living Dead print, which most people have seen. We've done like some promotion for that. We did a reel and everything and put pictures of that up, and our printmaker making it. And then tomorrow we're going to release the Crazies one. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm actually more proud of the Crazies image than I am of the. I love them both, but I mean the Crazies image is really cool. I think it did the movie justice. And then there might be another screen print that we haven't talked about yet, but
Another one.
I don't know what it could be for. Maybe a main event kind of thing. But yeah, that'll be released soon. And you're not going to want to miss getting your hands on that last print. Whatever
you coquettish silver tongue devil, you.
whatever it might be, I don't know.
But yeah,
I will say it's bloody.
Yeah.
Nice.
Guys, yeah, don't sleep on his work, because he is an unbelievable artist. And like I said, I'm a little bit jelly. I'm not gonna lie. I wish I could do what he does.
Mark, did you do the shirts last year?
I've done, since we've got new management, I've been doing all of their art design.
Because I gotta say, like that, I bought a shirt last year, and it's one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you. The circle one.
Yes,
with the Army of Darkness. Yeah, that was fun. We just we put up some of our new clothes on Instagram and Facebook today. So like my big thing that I thought would be cool this year was we have hoodies this year, and our poster is I kind of went with like a death metal look for it. So the hoodies are super cool. They're very reminiscent of like a hardcore metal type hoodie. So there's print down the sleeves, and there's like on the breast pocket there's the logo, and then on the back is the poster all in red. So it's a really nice hoodie. I think they're going to go pretty quick. But then we also have long sleeve t-shirts that have the same deal, the print down the sleeves. So that's very like death metal in its like vibe. And of course, we've got regular t-shirts, and then I know they've been knocking out hats and stuff. And we're actually going to have iron-on patches of the exclamation point this year too. So if you're one of the people like me who does like, iron-ons onto like a jean jacket or something, you won't want to miss those. So there's lots of good merch coming out.
Awesome.
And if you're looking this up, sorry, Brian.
No, go ahead, man.
Is that I'm sure if you type in EERIE Horror Fest to Google and type in EERIE correctly, you're still going to find it, but it's E
EERIE.
It's eerie,
Eerie.
like creepy.
Yeah.
EERIEHorrorFest.com with 2 E's.
2 E's.
In the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
It'll come right up with the Goblin Show.
It's
Right on the banner there. And then we're on all the social media platforms and things. So we're going to start doing, I've been working with WQLN on doing some like fun TikTok type videos for our mascot Scabs, who's just like a fun zombie character. So
we're all on Eerieites. That's our PBS affiliate.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I didn't know what that was. I figured that's what it was, but I didn't know.
Their studio is literally on a street named Sesame Street, so that's kind of cool.
And it's actually, fun fact, very, very, very close to where Brian Wells got his collar bomb put on him.
Oh, okay.
Well, now that we brought everything down.
That's our Romero end.
There you go. That's our Romero end.
And we'll just hang our heads and walk away. Remember that? That was a downer. All right. See you later, everyone.
But in all seriousness, you got to get your butt to EERIE Horror Fest. We will be there. I am totally looking forward to it. Last year was amazing. I know this year is going to be bonkers.
It'll be cool.
Yeah. Goblin doing demons that's awesome. Like in another way, like I can't even imagine those soundtracks just like being played live
in that theater too.
In the
Warner. I mean, I've seen Alice Cooper 3 times in the Warner, and it's amazing. And like, so I'm sure it'll have, again, an awesome atmosphere for that music.
Awesome. Well, Mark, it's been a hell of a time having you on. I'm glad we got to bring you on, got to talk about the Crazies and EERIE Horror Fest. Where can people find info about you? And
I pretty much just work through Instagram, so just look me up on Instagram. My name is MonsterMark138. It'll come right up. You'll find a bunch of Horror Fest stuff. You'll find a link to my book on Amazon called Scream All You Want, The Macaroni's Growing Mold, which is kind of like a cheesy version of Mad Magazine that I put out last year. Shameless plug.
We have all the shameless plugs.
Yeah.
Plug away.
Plug it in.
So yeah, you'll find me on Instagram. Feel free to follow me. I'm always posting, artwork and stuff or action figures that I buy because I buy a lot of them. So yeah, come to Horror Fest. It'll be fun. We'll all be there.
Awesome. John, where can they find you at on the internets?
Oh, well, from each week, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So yeah, follow me on all Dems and message me on all Dems.
All Dems.
And I'll get back to you on all Dems.
All Dems in the DMs?
Yeah, all Dems in the DMs.
Awesome. You can find me at Brian Connington on the, I guess, X, formerly Twitter. Fucking Elon. And you can also follow us on the Psycho Show page. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at Psycho Show. We are also on the TikToks for our Gen Z and younger millennial folk. You can find us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Cinema Psycho Show is where we're at on TikTok, not .com. If you want to hang out with us and talk to us about, the Crazies or EERIE Horror Fest, we do have a Discord channel. The link for it is in the description of this episode. Join our Discord channel. It's where you can talk to us directly. Maybe you really love the Crazies and it's your absolute favorite one, and you want to tell us that, Clank's portrayal of a drunken Yinzer back in 1973 was the best portrayal of a drunken Yinzer ever. You can tell us that in the Discord channel. Okay. Or you can contact us via email at cinemapsychoshow.com. Be sure to follow us, subscribe to us, like us, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we will see you next time.
Go to the EERIE Horror Fest and please, for the love of God, follow MonsterMark138 on Instagram. If you don't want to buy a piece of art there, I don't want to know you.
Take care.